Right, guys, okay, in today's video, we are doing something a little bit different. I am not just taking you through what I do in a day. Um, for those that are subscribed or regularly watching these videos, first of all, I appreciate you. If you're not, drop a like and subscribe to the channel. If you're feeling extra zesty, go ahead and tap the bell so that you don't miss a video. But today, we are actually going to do more of like a face-to-face kind of video where I talk a little bit about some of the things that I've picked up at a startup for the last 3 years. So I've kind of broken this down into three main themes. So the first is consistency, the second is emotion, and the third is going to be strategy. And so then we'll go through all of that, and at the end I will kind of share what I would do if I was going to start my own company from scratch tomorrow, and how I would go about it. So what do I mean by consistency? Well, by that I mean the likelihood is it's going to take multiple goes at whatever it is you're trying to do before you see any kind of success. I mean, for example, when we first started out, and for those that aren't aware of what Habits, the startup I'm working for, does, we effectively help those that have reached their DIY expiration date when it comes to personal finances connect with high quality financial advisors that want to work with them. And so that is the bread and butter of what we do. We started out by being targeted primarily towards first generation Americans. So those that had immigrated to America and didn't really have roots sort of set up there. They weren't sure what they should be doing with their finances. And our kind of initial niche was going to be that. It was going to be helping those people connect with financial advisors that knew specifically about them, about their category, their demographic, and all of that sort of stuff. We've pivoted loads as a startup. What we do today is very different to what we were going to do back then. But I think what's really important at a startup is understanding and being aware of the fact that you are going to have to pivot. Your first idea is not going to be the right one, realistically. On top of that, the first way you go about trying to do whatever it is you're trying to do is not going to be the way you end up doing it. I think that's the reality that most people sort of aren't necessarily aware of. It's a lot of work, and candidly I reckon genuinely probably 60 to 70% of working at a startup is about putting out the next fire. So what's going wrong, which customers are not having a great experience, and how can you change that, what's not working with the product, all of this sort of stuff. You are, I would say, spending more time focused on what's not working than thinking, oh, this is what we're gonna go and do. And so that, I think, is something that maybe isn't obvious from the outside, because the public stuff, the stuff that you guys see all the time, is the wins, it's the success stories, it's all of that sort of stuff that realistically the startups want you to see, because it showcases strength. I think that is not all that goes into a startup. It's very easy to see something and think it's an overnight success. An example that jumps to my mind is ChatGPT. This might just be me. I'd never heard of ChatGPT until sort of I was going through my university exams towards the early stages of 2023. So it exploded. It was like, you've got to be using ChatGPT. We all had online exams, so it was like, okay, well, yeah, let's use that to help. And candidly, it helped a lot. And since then, it's been exponential. Like everyone and their nan knows about ChatGPT. I'd never heard of it before that month. Like, let's call it February 2023. I'd never heard of it. And to me, it seemed like this came about overnight. It wasn't until I actually looked into it a little bit. OpenAI, so the company behind ChatGPT, had been around for 8 years before that. And so that, for me, was an example that what you see is not necessarily the reality of what a startup is. To win at a startup, it's not about a short burst, a big push, mass release, and kind of big publicity. Generally, it's about getting 1% better every single day. What little tweak can you make to the website that's going to bring an extra person through? How can you have a positive experience with a user that is going to just make that one person refer you to someone else? All of these little things that slowly builds up over time. The second point, emotion. One thing that I kind of went into a startup thinking was product is going to be king. We're going to build a product, people are going to use it, people are going to like it, people are going to pay for it, and they're going to continue paying for it. That's not how it necessarily pans out. Our product has not always worked. We had sort of early releases where the product, and so in our situation, it was an application that people could, coming through the platform, could use. They could go through the application, share their financial sort of story and what it is they're looking for, why they're thinking about working with a financial advisor, and they can connect with advisors through the application. Now, in the early days of our company, it wasn't a smooth and seamless process that everyone could just go through. And so we had to pivot and end up sort of jumping on onboarding calls where members of our team would guide them through the application because it wasn't always clear. If the application wasn't working in a certain area, we could step in and make sure that that person got the result they needed to, even if the technology wasn't working. And for us, it's all about emotion, because we're going to get to that point where the product is just, it's a killer. And we are getting there. We're not there yet. I want to be very clear. And I don't think you'll ever get to a point where you're like, yeah, our product is done. I don't think that's ever going to happen. There's always going to be things you can improve on a product. But in the early stages of a startup, when you don't have the millions in a development budget, you don't have hundreds of developers working and being able to fix things like that and bring in new features the next day, it's so much more about making people's experience the right experience, even if the product doesn't work in the way it should. And so this for us, I mean, I was speaking with a user last week, and it wasn't the case that the product wasn't working for him. Actually, the product worked beautifully. But the key thing here, and why this person is going to go and share habits and has shared habits with multiple people, is it was my final call on a Friday evening. So I had time, and we ended up speaking for about an hour and a half when we had a 30-minute call booked in, because he had questions about what it was like working at a startup. And I was more than happy to go through and share any thoughts I had. That may be where that's coming from, but
I'm curious.
Yeah.
Do you spend this amount of time with all the users?
We are more than happy to. We're in a more unique position today where, like, I don't have a call after this. If I had a hard stop, then we obviously would have had to rush through a little bit more. But if not, then absolutely, yeah.
Wow. I'm good for you and you guys. I mean, it's with me trying to do my own thing. I'm if I can offer any, would love to provide any feedback as you guys try to grow and everything. I think it's amazing. You spend this much time with each individual user or are open to it.
Yeah.
Because it seems like a lot of time, but it gives me as a user comfort that I'm gonna make a good decision for myself and feel good about the platform and finding the right person to help me.
The emotion that this sort of created was that we actually cared. And so then the last thing I wanted to kind of talk about was strategy. And this is really in the sense of when thinking about a product, because really there are, and I'm sure there's more, but this is kind of my opinion, there are three main categories of startup. There are your first movers, which is where you are doing something groundbreaking, something that hasn't been done before. Think Uber, Airbnb, ChatGPT. Like, these are things that came out and no one had seen it or seen anything like it previously. They were the first to do it. And so they got the market loyalty early on because there weren't competitors. And that is a big benefit. I think the thing to mention about first movers, that's tough to do. You have to take a big risk in putting yourself out there in an unproven market, and you don't know what the result's going to be. It could completely flop. So that is the first category. The second is the fast followers. So it's like, okay, there's companies out there that do this. How can we do this better? And so it's kind of taking a feature or a gap that an existing product has and filling it, or making the experience better, making the UI better, whatever it might be. Think Google. I mean, that before Google there was Yahoo, and who uses Yahoo now? I think Facebook came after MySpace and things like that. So these were companies that had seen an existing company out there doing something that they thought they could do significantly better. So that's like the fast followers. I think then the third type is the price disruptors. And so this is where you can offer the same or a similar product or service for cheaper. Think companies like Ryanair. So they get you from A to B in exactly the same way as British Airways, American Airlines, whatever it might be. But they're under no illusions that they are the best service out there. In fact, quite the opposite. What they say, though, is we can do it for significantly cheaper. And they do. And so that is kind of one option that you can go with. I think of these three, there is really only one space that if I was going to start my own company, I would go into. And that is the second one. So fast followers. I think the issue with being a first mover in a space, yes, the reward is huge. But candidly, I don't know. And don't get me wrong, this is why I'm not a $1 billion CEO. I don't have an idea that I'm thinking, no one's done this before and this is going to be groundbreaking. That is quite tough to come across. And so on top of that, let's say you have this idea, it's not proven. You've got to convince the market that this is a good thing. And that is by no means an easy situation. So that's not, in my opinion, an easy route to jump into. I think then the other one that I would avoid is being a price disruptor. The issue with being a price disruptor is that someone can always go lower. And so what the theory says is that effectively everyone is just going to keep undercutting the others until you reach a point where you are charging break-even price. You're not making any money because there's no money left to be made. Any profit that could be taken, someone else is undercutting you and charging less to eat into that. And so that for me is not a great route to go into, because long term, where's the win? I don't see there being a win. And as a startup, it's a lot harder to undercut and operate at a cheaper price than a big company. So those big companies should theoretically always be able to charge less than you for the same product, that is, because they've got economies of scale. So really that leaves us with that option 2, being a fast follower. And this is what Habits did. This is what I would do if I was going to go and start my own startup tomorrow. This is what I would be doing. You don't have to be better than all of your competitors at everything. I think that is very much like a misconception of like, I would create something in this space, but this company already exists and does all of this. That's going to be the situation. I think my suggestion would be, don't try and beat your competitors at everything. Just try and beat them at one thing and then market the shit out of that. So an example like with Habits. So there are loads of lead generation platforms out there for financial advisors where they can purchase leads, they can buy phone numbers of people that may be thinking about working with an advisor. They may have filled out some financial like compound interest calculator or mortgage form, whatever it might be. And so there are loads of companies out there that can do that, and candidly they'll be able to buy way more sort of leads than we will be providing advisors. That's just the fact of it. There are companies out there that have been around for decades, and so their marketing, SEO, they cover the space. We can't really go and compete in that sense with them. So we're not going to. The thing we do is we have the benefit of coming in after all these people, and so we can learn from their mistakes, so to speak. We can get feedback from people that have used them, and what did they like? Great, we can kind of take that into account. And more importantly, what did they not like? What wasn't a good experience when using them? And if we can double down on that and get that to the point where we do that really, really well, that is our market share. So for example, with this lead generation space with Habits, we got so many pieces of feedback from people saying that the leads they'd got from other platforms were not very good quality. Either they didn't know they were sort of signing up to be contacted, they weren't really interested, whatever it might be. The advisors were paying for those leads and they weren't the best quality. So for us, we've said, okay, well, look, we're going to send you probably a tenth of the leads that you might be able to go and buy from another platform. But every single one of our leads is going to be extremely high quality, because we're not just sending you a phone number of someone that filled out a form. They have come through our platform with the intention of meeting you. So it's not a case of you having to go and try and convince these people to have a conversation. They've come to you and booked a conversation because that's what they want. And so for us, we're able to charge the same, if not more, for this service, despite sending a fraction of those leads that they may be able to get from other people. And that is the way we win. That's where people use us over other platforms. Now, it's not going to be for everybody. Some people may want to sort of go with as many at-bats as physically possible, as many phone numbers as they can get. Fantastic, that's great. We're not going to be the best fit for everyone, but we want to be the best fit for the niche that wants to use us, and that's what we're doing, and that's where it works well. And I think that's what you've got to do as a startup, because you're not going to go and beat every other competitor out there at everything. That's not going to happen. This is all just my opinion, guys, but hopefully it all makes sense. If you did enjoy the video, please drop it a like, drop a comment on anything you want to see more. Are there things you agreed with, disagreed with? And yeah, make sure you subscribe, hit the notification bell so you don't miss the next one. And yeah, I look forward to seeing you next week.